Douglas, hey, congratulations on your new film, Exposure.
Thank you.
Most excellent. So tell us what initially drew you to be a part of this project for Exposure.
It's usually it's the script. I know that's probably a pretty familiar answer, but it's the truth. I got the email from my agent, and first there was like a pitch deck, which is usually like a 10 or 20 page slide of images and sort of a mission statement from the director on the visual style and the sort of kind of like the movie they're hoping to make with it. And then if you're interested in that, then you look at the script, which is, a longer time commitment. It's like it was a 120-page script, and I'm a slow reader, so that's a multiple hour commitment after looking at the pitch deck. So then I went to the script, and from the beginning, that first 10 pages, it was so detail oriented and in a way that really kind of made sense to me. It's what I'm talking about is not the when you see Tanner in the shed, but once you sort of are with him at the office and he's working there, and then he starts to inspect the seal on the water and the food and trying to like figure things out. It really gripped me. It really there was a little bit more in the script actually than it is in the movie, because that's the nature of movies, they get cut down. But I was really just like, I felt like I could see the movie in my head and I was curious to know more, and then I kept going from there, and I was interested in, and then me and Peter started talking to see if it would be a good fit.
Wow. Yeah, and I spoke to Peter previously, and one of the things he's proud of is creating the character of Tanner himself. Tell us about your research into OCD.
My research was through Peter. It was talking to him, and we spoke a bit about other resources, and it's a community that he's spoken publicly about being a part of, and he spoke to me about being kind of frustrated with the way OCD had been depicted in other films. Namely, I don't like want to throw other movies under the bus, but think that it's kind of a punchline. Oh, you don't want to walk on the cracks on the sidewalk and stuff like that. Like a very kind of a way that it was a way that his experience with OCD just didn't share a lot of DNA with, and so talking to him about, okay, so this is something that you have wrestled with, and you've found exposure therapy, and then you wanted to write a film that was autobiographical, but then you also wanted to wrap it in the dressing of a psychological thriller. And of course, he did not get abducted. That aspect of it is not autobiographical, but the other parts of Tanner's journey, Tanner's struggle, exposure therapy, that was the journey that he has been on. And so are there things in the script that were a little close to home for me? Yes. And I didn't really want to turn my own demons too loose. So before signing on, I had a conversation with Peter, and I said, look, some of the stuff in the script is a little close to home. It scares me a little bit. So I am only going to be comfortable doing this movie if we make it about the character you've created. And I talk to you about your experiences, because you are obviously more comfortable speaking about that because you decided to make a movie about it. But I want to have a boundary with my own stuff, and I'll let it come through naturally, but you can direct me how you want to direct me, but I don't want to turn it into a personal therapy session. And if that is not good with you, then I might not be the right fit for the role. And then he said, okay. And we had a dialogue about it, well, what if I ask you to do this? Or what if I ask this question? Is that okay? Or is that? And I said, yeah. And we had this whole, I've never really done that with a director on a movie. So something about it was like close enough that I was a little nervous. So we had this whole conversation before deciding to work together about how we would comfortably communicate about this topic in doing the scenes. And then we stuck to it as we worked, and it was fine. And it was fine. There was no conflict on that. And I'm proud of the result we got. But yeah, I don't know if that totally answers your question, but it was unique to this movie. I've never had that kind of a conversation before working with the director before.
So how familiar were you with the concept of exposure therapy and also because one of the things about like OCD, a lot of people, like you mentioned before, thinking about like stepping on cracks or repetitive, when in fact OCD is like 25 different variations of
Yes.
OCD is actually out there.
I wasn't familiar that it was 25, but there's many. Yes, very familiar. And that kind of goes into the realm of my own personal stuff that I sort of from the outset told Peter I wasn't going to be super comfortable talking about with him. And but I can tell you, yes, very familiar. Um, um, but when it gets into the more specific sharing of the personal, I think Peter has made a decision to be much more like public about his journey, and so I leave it to him in that regard. And yeah, but yes, very familiar.
So Douglas, now you played tremendous characters in your entire career. So how did you get into the mental capacity of playing Tanner, and how do you turn Tanner off at the end of the day?
You know, yeah, there's always that worry, right? We go too far, and you won't be able to turn it off. I had an acting coach that thought that was like not true, that nobody goes too far and they can't turn it off. I don't know if I agree with her. I really just try to make it about the character, and I believe that you build the character from the text, and then you can't help but imbue it with part of who you are, because you'll never fully escape who you are. But I think there's the kind of two schools of acting. Are you gonna like start talking about the worst moments in your life, or are you gonna make it about the text? And I came up learning my trade to make it about the text. So I think it's safer. I think it's more responsible. And other actors who believe that share that opinion. But yeah, there's it's kind of like two different schools of thought when it comes to acting.
Most excellent. Tell us about acting alongside with Margot through this film, because there's just tremendous portrayals of anxiety and paranoia from your character, but there's also anxiety and paranoia when you're acting, you know, sharing this experience with someone else on screen at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole heart of the film is the relationship between Tanner and Nicole, and it's it's heartbreaking because the question that I think is posed, and it's kind of unanswerable, is where is the line between being a loving partner and an empathetic listener and trying to help the person you love, and inadvertently being an enabler and harming them. And that's kind of, I was like, I rewatched the film this weekend in preparation to talk to people about it today, and it's just, I don't have an answer where that line is, because it feels kind of it's kind of like she is in an unwinnable argument. And it's kind of a tragedy.
When you rewatch a film like this, is it also tough for you to watch because it's so much it's a lot of drama that actually involves between relationships.
Yeah, it was easier this time. So we made it the spring of 22. So I think I first saw a rough cut. Maybe I first saw a rough cut a year after we made it, and then I saw it like fully finished a year and a half after we made it, when it went to the Newport Film Festival in the fall of 23. And then I watched it a couple of times that in the like around the time of the film festival premiere. And then I didn't watch it again until this weekend, leading up to today. And I enjoyed it more. The more space I have, the more I sort of Also, like the more I forget like little details, like how hot it was in the house. You know, we shot it in the valley and you know, if anyone knows anything about movie making, you know, the air conditioner has to be turned off. Otherwise it'll mess with the recording of the sound. And so, you know, for a while I'd watch it and all I would any scene inside that house, all I'm thinking about is it was like maybe 90 outside and like 100 inside. You know, it was like so hot, you know. So those things get dimmer with time and you sort of you'll never fully be like a normal audience member, but you get closer to it. And also I watched it before, like I'd watched it on my laptop and like, you know, the links, they never work. You know, it wasn't until like, you know, I watched in a theater with people, but you know, when I did that, it was kind of like I was like, I don't know, not fully relaxed. So the best experience for me was when I could stream it on like Amazon or Apple because it's on my TV and it comes through with like the best resolution, as opposed to like when you mirror something from your laptop to the smart TV, it just it's kind of janky, you know. So like you know like it was a the best sort of experience I had watching it was when I rented it. I didn't ask for a link because if they sent me the link, it would have gone to my laptop. I would have been so I actually just paid to rent it like over the weekend and watched it on Amazon, and that was like the best viewing experience. And yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I kind of like felt silly, you know. I don't know how much I paid. Was it $9 or something? Maybe $6. I don't know. I can't remember how much I paid. I felt it feels silly sometimes to like pay to watch your own movie, but you know, I didn't want to watch it on my laptop, you know, and that's what would have happened if they sent me a link. So, you know.
No, I think that's beautiful. The fact that you are supporting your own movie. Douglas, why do you love doing independent projects like Exposure? Because I know you've been exposed to small projects and even large projects in your entire career.
Yeah. It's not really, it's usually about well, I guess was the question, how do I like it or why do I go to independent films?
You know,
Because
why do you love doing independent films like this?
I love doing roles where, you know, when you have more to do. I think when I made Exposure, yeah, I had it'd been a minute since I'd been the lead of something, you know, I'd been the supporting lead on a lot of things. You know, there was a period in my career where I'd done that more, but at that point I'd been doing a lot of like, you know, part of an ensemble. And I was it's like, can I still be a lead of a movie? Like, I don't know, like have I forgotten how to do that? You know, will people get sick of seeing me too much in the movie? Like, you know, that kind of thing. So that was an aspect of it. It's more realistic for an actor at my level to become the lead of an independent movie rather than you know, studio movie. I mean, I'm not famous, you know, so like that's like it's a little harder to be the lead of a studio film. But you know, it's also a little bit of luck and just coincidence. Like you kind of just I go through my career with, you know, working on things with people I have previous relationships with, but then also, you know, auditions come down the pike from my agency, offers come down the pike. It's kind of like a big stew, and you're always kind of working on different things. And you never know what's going to happen, and that may be because you don't know if the movie that they want you to do will like fully come through with its financing, or you don't know if there's a TV show that you're up for, if they'll decide to hire you. You maybe get down to the last, you know, a couple and it'll go your way, it won't go your way. It's just it's a miracle that anything gets made. You know, it's just this big chaotic stew, and you just kind of are trying to navigate it the best you can. And so that usually involves like a variety of types of projects, whether that's stage, whether that's an indie movie or a studio film, or you know, a recurring guest star on a TV show versus a series regular role. I mean, I kind of do it all. And I feel like I do it all, but I don't do any of it. Sometimes I feel like that. I don't know. So I don't feel like an actor because it's been too long between gigs. I don't know. It's yeah, being an actor is kind of a crazy job. I wouldn't recommend it unless you absolutely feel like you have to do it. Um,
You know what? You do well. You carry a lead role very well. You carry supporting roles very well. Well, Douglas, I really appreciate you carrying this conversation with us about Exposure. It is a thrilling ride. But before I let you go, one of the things that like you were mentioning is playing playing, supporting roles, and one of the ultimate supporting roles, I don't want to call it supporting roles, is because the Kevin Costner film, Horizon, it seems like there's so many characters, and you mentioned before, it's a miracle that films ever be made. And you're part of that film. What is the experience of being in a film like that I want to say, suppose it's going to take over 5 films. So such a big project.
Well, it's a big project. The first two films are kind of a pretty satisfying experience. Now, the first film is just setting up a lot of stuff. The second film really does arrive at a very satisfying conclusion, and I worked a lot more on the second film. So if you check out chapter 2, you will be seeing a lot more of Sig, my character, and that was very rewarding. It was kind of, it's up there with the most rewarding experiences of my career, both creatively and just personally, being, in the most beautiful parts of Utah and around these national parks, and getting to learn how to drive a mule-drawn carriage, and learning that, and the camaraderie with the other actors. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to chapter 2. It was supposed to come out in August, but they pulled it from the release calendar to give more time for people to see chapter 1. It looks like that has been working out. It's been topping the charts on the VOD charts since they put it over to VOD, and now they've just, as of last week, slated Horizon Chapter 2 to premiere at the Venice Film Festival on September 7th. They're going to show chapter 1 earlier on the same day, so it'll be like 6 hours. Chapter 2 is not as long. Chapter 2 is 2:45, but they're going to show chapter 1 earlier on the same day, and then they're going to show chapter 2, and that's a pretty complete experience. I know Kevin's initial intent is 4. It's chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, but chapter 1 and 2 are kind of a complete thing, and then chapter 3 and 4, I don't want to say too much and get in trouble, but I'm really looking forward to chapter 2. Yeah, I don't think I can go to Venice. I'm gonna be shooting in the western part of Canada that same time period. So and it's all kind of evolving over the past week, trying to figure out if I could go or not. But yeah. Anyways, I hope you stick with the saga and check out chapter 2, because it's, I don't know, it's a trip. But it's funny. I was auditioning for Horizon while I was making Exposure. I was like working on my lines, like while we were making those dinner table scenes in Exposure. I remember when the camera was moving, I was like going into the other room of that house and like learning lines for the audition for Horizon. So it was kind of funny when I ended up getting to do that, and like it's just kind of, yeah, because you do a lot of auditions you don't get. So it was a kind of funny thing that actually was happening at the same time. And they've both taken a while to, I don't know, they're just totally different things. Horizon, I auditioned for it in the spring of 22, and then worked on it a little bit for chapter 1, just like a week. We like all the wagon train stuff. We did all that in 1 week, and we did that in like October of 22, and then went away and came back in the spring of 23, and then we worked on it in March, April, May for 3 months in the spring of 23, and then here we are in the summer of 24. But yeah, like, so most of our stuff is the wagon train is we did in the chapter 2. So anyways, I hope I didn't say too, I don't think I said too much. I mean,
You did
I'm
not.
being pretty
Don't
vague.
worry.
Okay, all right. I'm always afraid I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm just, no, don't say too much, but they want you to be here and say some, so it's like trying to like figure it all out is sometimes it's overwhelming. But anyways, yeah.
You're all good. You didn't reveal any spoilers, so you're all good, Douglas. So Douglas, thank you very much for your time for Exposure. Hopefully we get to do this again. Maybe we'll talk again for chapter 2 when you could talk about it. So thank you.
Great. I would love that.